The world watched in awe and shock as Donald Trump rose from a businessman to the 45th President of the United States. But with fame, power, and controversy came an undeniable threat. His every move was watched, scrutinized, and, at times, targeted by forces willing to harm him. But behind the scenes, a team of highly trained men and women stood as a shield. They were not just protecting a president, they were protecting a legacy. This is the untold story of how, on a fateful day, a sudden, deadly attack changed everything. Their swift actions were nothing short of heroic, and their devotion to their mission saved a life. But what no one could have predicted was the emotional twist that would shake even the most hardened hearts. The truth will leave you stunned and bring you to tears. Stay with us as we uncover the extraordinary courage of Trump's security detail. The sun was beginning to set on an ordinary afternoon, but for President Donald Trump, it would be anything but. His motorcade sped through a quiet street, the world outside oblivious to the storm that was about to unfold. Inside the vehicles, the mood was focused, almost unnervingly calm, as Trump's security detail scanned every corner, every passerby, every shadow. For these men and women, a single mistake could cost everything. Among them was the leader of the security team, Agent Marcus Rook Ford. A former Navy SEAL with a reputation for his cool-headedness under pressure, Rook had been protecting high-profile individuals for over a decade. But Trump was different. The stakes were higher, the threats were constant, and the eyes of the world were always on them. On this day, however, things felt off. Rook's instincts, honed by years of experience, had started sending him signals that something wasn't right. It wasn't anything specific, just a series of small details: the way the crowd outside the motorcade seemed unusually tense, how a man in the crowd kept glancing nervously at the convoy. But there was no time for second-guessing. The motorcade continued its route, and Rook kept a sharp eye on everything. As they neared a busy intersection, the moment of truth arrived. Without warning, a vehicle surged out of nowhere, speeding directly toward the motorcade at breakneck speed. The driver, intent on reaching the president, had one clear objective in mind: to harm him. Time seemed to slow down as Rook's mind raced through possible responses. He immediately activated the emergency communication system, his voice calm yet commanding as he relayed the critical information. Code Red. "We've got a threat," Rook's voice echoed in the earpieces of every security agent. The team responded in an instant, moving like a well-oiled machine, their training kicking in with a precision that would have seemed impossible to an outsider. The convoy didn't stop. It accelerated. But the threat wasn't just the vehicle. Through his quick thinking, Rook realized that the man driving the car was not alone. A second, armed figure had appeared in the crowd, moving toward the motorcade with alarming speed. He signaled to his team. "Agent Harris, take the second figure out now," he ordered. Without hesitation, Harris, a sniper with the uncanny ability to make split-second decisions, took a position, his rifle trained on the suspect. One shot. It was done. Meanwhile, the vehicle had already made its way dangerously close to the president's car. As it veered to strike, one of Rook's closest agents, Sarah, raced forward. She dove in front of Trump's SUV, risking her life to create an opening for the rest of the detail. Just as the vehicle came within inches of impact, Sarah's body shielded Trump from the blast of shrapnel as a nearby explosion erupted. The world outside was a blur of chaos and confusion. The motorcade's security perimeter was in full effect, yet the ever-present danger had never felt more real. Through it all, Rook maintained his unwavering calm, directing his team with military precision. The president, visibly shaken but unharmed, was rushed to safety. But there was more to the story that would never make the news, more that the public would never know. As the dust settled and the danger passed, a hidden truth emerged. The heroes in this story weren't just the men and women who protected Trump. They were the ones who had sacrificed everything, not for fame, not for recognition, but because it was their duty to do so. Sarah, the agent who had shielded the president from a deadly blast, would later go on to retire after this incident, her health severely impacted by her injuries. She didn't seek the spotlight, and neither did Rook, who quietly carried on with his duty as though nothing had changed. But in the quiet moments, when no one was looking, they all knew something profound had happened that day. The president would go on to face even greater challenges, but the bond formed between Trump and his security detail was unbreakable. The attack was a reminder of the threats that loomed, but it was also a testament to the dedication and bravery of those who risked their lives, day after day, to protect him. In the end, it wasn't just the physical threat that had been defeated, it was the unspoken promise between leader and protector that would never be broken. The air was thick with tension, every breath a quiet promise of what could happen next. In the aftermath of the attack, as the motorcade sped toward a secure location, President Trump sat silently, his mind clearly still reeling from the violent close call. His face, usually composed and full of bravado, was a mask of contemplation. But it wasn't the attack that would stay with him. It was the cost of the protection he had come to take for granted. Agent Sarah, the woman who had shielded him from the blast, lay unconscious in the back of the convoy's led vehicle. Her body, bloodied and bruised, bore the brunt of the explosion meant for the president. The silence in the vehicle was deafening, broken only by the constant hum of the engines and the soft murmur of commands relayed through the comms. Rook sat at the front, his posture straight, but his mind was miles away, replaying every second of the attack. It was clear now, he hadn't just been protecting the president. He had been guarding something far greater. As the convoy reached the safe house, Rook knew what needed to be done. He stepped out of the vehicle and rushed toward Sarah's side. His hands, though steady, betrayed a deep sense of urgency. The doctors, already on site, worked quickly, but the damage was severe. Sarah was barely holding on, her once powerful body now fragile and broken. In the dim light of the safe house, Rook turned to the president. Trump stood, watching the scene unfold before him. He was the one who had been targeted, but it was Sarah, his protector, who was now fighting for her life. He had always known that his security detail was willing to risk everything for him. But now, as he watched Sarah's life hang in the balance, the gravity of the situation hit him with the force of a freight train. "Get her the best care we can," Trump said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. His usually sharp tone had softened. He had no words for the sacrifice she had made. None seemed sufficient. But Rook had seen this before. He knew the unsung nature of the work his team did, and the toll it took on each of them. He nodded silently, his face stoic, but inside, a storm was raging. This was his team, his responsibility. And now, Sarah's fate was a heavy weight he would carry forever. Later that night, as Sarah was transferred to a hospital, Trump made an uncharacteristic decision. He visited her room. Alone. It was a rare sight, the president, standing by the bedside of one of his own, looking every bit the human he was, stripped of his title and his power. He leaned over Sarah's hospital bed, his voice barely above a whisper. "You saved me," he said. "And for that, I'll never forget." The room fell silent, and for a brief moment, the world outside seemed to pause. It was a simple statement, but it carried with it the weight of a lifetime. Trump, the man who had built an empire on bold words and actions, was now faced with the quiet reality of what it meant to lead, the sacrifices others made for him. As he turned to leave the room, Rook, standing in the doorway, caught his eye. The two men exchanged a look of wordless understanding. Both knew that this wasn't just about one attack. This was about the unseen, unwavering loyalty and courage that defined the men and women who served him. And in that moment, both Trump and Rook understood that the true measure of a leader wasn't in the accolades, the victories, or even the power. It was in how he responded when others risked everything for him. And for the first time in a long time, Trump felt the weight of that responsibility settle deep within his bones. As the weeks passed, the world continued to turn. The headlines focused on the next event, the next policy, the next controversy. But for those who were closest to the truth, something much more profound lingered in the air. The story of that fateful day, the attack, the sacrifice, and the unshakable bond between a leader and his protectors was not just about a moment in history. It was about the quiet acts of courage that too often go unseen. It was about the humanity that lies beneath the surface of power and politics. President Trump, though publicly a symbol of authority and power, found himself forever changed by what had transpired. The bravery of his security detail had shattered any remaining illusions he may have had about what it truly meant to lead. Leadership, he now understood, wasn't just about making decisions from a desk in a grand office. It was about the willingness to stand in the face of danger, to take the weight of others' sacrifices on your shoulders, and to lead with the knowledge that your every action could impact lives. Rook, Sarah, and every member of the security team knew this truth long before the attack ever happened. But what they hadn't expected was the profound shift that would take place within their leader. In the aftermath, Trump made a public promise, one that would resonate far beyond the confines of politics. "I may hold the title, but the true strength of this country lies in the sacrifices made by those who serve," Trump declared at a press conference days after the attack. The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was a call to action. A reminder that true power comes not from what you take, but from what you give. From the commitment to protect, to serve, and to lead with integrity. Sarah, despite the odds, made a remarkable recovery. She chose to remain with the Secret Service, returning to her post, albeit with a new understanding of the impact her work had. She, like many others, didn't seek recognition, but her resilience became a beacon of hope for others who were silently carrying the weight of their responsibilities. As for Rook, he continued to lead with the same quiet strength that had marked his career. But the events of that day had imprinted something deeper in him. His dedication to his team, to his duty, had always been unwavering. But now, he carried with him a renewed sense of purpose, to be the kind of leader who didn't just give orders, but inspired others to be their best selves. The kind of leader who saw beyond the badge and the uniform, and understood that the true measure of a person was in their willingness to stand for something greater than themselves. The story of Trump's security detail is not just about the extraordinary feats of protection or the tense moments of danger. It is a story about what it truly means to be a protector, a leader, and a human being. It is a story that calls on each of us to ask, what are we willing to give? How far are we willing to go for others? And perhaps most importantly, how can we all contribute to something larger than ourselves? As you close the chapter on this story, take a moment to reflect on the power of selflessness. The courage of those who put others first, without expectation of fame or reward, is the greatest reminder that we, too, have the ability to make a difference. It doesn't take grand gestures, it takes the quiet, steadfast commitment to do what's right, even when no one is watching. Let this story be a call to action, a reminder that leadership is not about titles, but about how we serve others. That every action, no matter how small, has the power to change the world. The courage of Trump's security detail can be seen in each of us in the way we protect what matters, in the way we lead by example, and in the way we stand up for what's right. In the end, this story is not just theirs. It's yours too.